Yesterday it snowed here. Not the soft kind that disappears by noon. Real snow. The kind that tells the garden to rest. This morning, before I'd even finished my cup of coffee, I was told it was time to get ahead. Pre-order plants. Pay now. Limited supply. Don't miss out. And don't worry. They'll ship them when my zone is ready. Which is considerate. And also loud. Because when there's snow on the ground and the garden is very much asleep, that message lands differently. And it made me wonder, when did gardening start to feel like a race? At first, I thought gardening feels louder because spring marketing starts early every year. I'm excited about spring and it's only January. But the longer I sat with it, the more I realized what was really getting crowded out. And it wasn't the hostas. Before we go any further, I should probably say, I am Michelle and I'm new here. New to YouTube and still fairly new to the nursery business too. So this channel is a lot like gardening. There will be false starts, a few failures, and hopefully plenty of things that grow better than expected. Hostas, gardens, friendships. If you find yourself craving a quieter way to think about gardening, subscribing is a nice option to find your way back and spend time with us here. Now today, I want to talk about something I've been noticing more and more. Maybe you have too. Why gardening feels louder than it ever used to. I don't think it's one social platform. I've noticed it on Instagram, Facebook, the occasional time I'm on TikTok, and YouTube. I think it's what happens when a deeply personal, seasonal practice gets broadcast all at once to everyone, everywhere, at the same time. Gardening doesn't move in unison, but online it does. Northern gardeners, southern gardeners, coastal climates, mountain climates, we all hear the same message on the same day, and that message is usually urgent. Now is the time. Don't fall behind. Everyone else is already doing this. Influencers have to be ahead of the curve. That's how influence works. They're preparing now so they can be visible later. I don't think that's wrong. But when that forward momentum reaches someone whose soil is still frozen, it can feel less like inspiration and more like pressure. And that's when gardening starts to feel competitive, like there's a pace you're supposed to keep up with, whether it suits your garden or not. I'm not immune to this. I spent an hour yesterday watching videos about new and popular plants for 2026. That's this year, 2026. I love seeing what's coming. I love the stories behind new cultivars. I love the anticipation. But at some point I noticed the shift, when curiosity quietly turns into momentum, when admiration starts nudging you to follow the crowd. That's my cue to pause. Because gardening content doesn't just get loud emotionally, it gets loud seasonally, ahead of the season, ahead of the garden's readiness, ahead of our own taste. 2 years ago, we had an early spring. It was glorious. Last year, it was right on time. And last spring, a local garden center had a display that stopped me in my tracks. I don't grow annuals in our nursery. We grow perennials. So I go to the local garden center for my annuals. And they had tables full of plants people had brought back for refunds. I was there before the last frost date, and obviously many others had been as well. Those plants had been purchased early, planted early, and then caught by frost. When I saw that display, we were still a full week before our average last frost date. Not even close to the actual one. Perennials feel sturdier, so we trust them more, but they notice these things too. Last year we received young Hope Springs Eternal, hostas that we planned to grow out, ahead of their designation as the 2026 Hosta of the Year. Almost every one of them grew strangely, forming what growers sometimes call a lotus blossom. It's a growth pattern you usually see when a hosta has been exposed to unusual cold. And our winter last year was cold, like it normally is. Not terribly cold, but it was cold. The problem, they didn't have any snow cover. We didn't have any snow. So they didn't have that blanket of protection from the elements. And those Hope Springs Eternal, they grew a little strangely. Nothing catastrophic, nothing fatal, just a reminder. The one thing I've learned, and this is my judgment, when gardening gets louder, it's often because someone else's timetable is being layered onto your garden. And no algorithm knows your microclimate, your frost pockets, or how spring actually behaves where you live. At Hosta Heaven, our average last frost date is April 24th. But there's about a 30% chance it can arrive as late as May 24th, a full month later. So we're always listening. We have outdoor temperature sensors with indoor alarms. And if that alarm goes off at 2 or 3 or 4 in the morning, we're up protecting plants. Not the garden. We let Mother Nature take care of the garden. The nursery inventory. Plants in pots, plants that are above ground, plants that don't have any trees growing over the top of them that are maybe getting some leaves that'll provide some protection. Often these plants are transitioning from a greenhouse into the real world in early spring. That's different than letting a garden meet the season in its own time. And I think that's the distinction that gets lost online. Gardening gets loud when marketing starts deciding for us, and a garden stops feeling like yours when someone else's urgency moves in. A garden isn't about keeping pace, it's about authorship, and you're the writer of your garden story. It's standing in your own space and saying, this is my garden, this is my timing, this is my taste. Maybe this is my tolerance for risk. It's okay if you want to cover your garden when there's frost expected. Hostas have taught me that patience isn't passive. They wait for the light they're given. They respond to the year they're having, not the one we were promised or we hoped for. Some seasons they surprise us. Some seasons they hesitate. Neither of those is failure. If gardening feels louder to you lately, I don't think you're imagining it. But I also don't think you're required to join the rush. You're allowed to watch. You're allowed to admire, and you're allowed to wait. Your garden isn't behind. It's just living on its own calendar. If you love hostas, shade gardens, and the real rhythm of our natural world, not just the pretty parts, you're always welcome here at Hosta Heaven. Until the next chapter, in the Hosta Garden.